We love categories. They make the world neat, predictable, safe. So when someone tells you you're anxious, or avoidant, or fearful, it feels like truth. Finally, a box that explains why love hurts the way it does. But here's the secret no one tells you. Those boxes can heal you or trap you because the moment you believe a label is all you are, you stop seeing who you could become. The comfort and the trap of labels. We love labels. They give us a way to explain the unexplainable. They turn chaos into order. They make sense of pain. When you first discover attachment theory, it feels like a revelation. Suddenly, the fights you had in your relationship, the push-pull dynamic that exhausted you, the ache of being too much or not enough, it all has a name. Anxious, avoidant, fearful, secure. At last, you see yourself. You recognize your partner. You finally have a language for the madness of love. For many, that's the first breath of relief they've taken in years. Because until then, you thought something was wrong with you. You thought you were broken. You thought you were unlovable. And then this system told you, no, you're not broken. You're just wired this way. For a while, that feels like freedom. It's as though the burden lifts. You don't carry the shame alone anymore. You can point to a framework, a psychology, a reason, and that's the comfort of labels. They validate. They explain. They give us belonging. But comfort has a shadow, because the same label that helps you understand yourself can slowly become the box you cannot escape. Think about it. An anxious person learns, I crave closeness. I fear abandonment. I will always chase. An avoidant person learns, I need distance. I fear intimacy. I will always run. A fearful person learns, I'm torn. I push and pull. I want love, but don't trust it. I will always sabotage. Do you see the pattern? The label turns into prophecy. The description turns into a script. And before you realize it, you're living not in freedom, but in limitation. It's no longer just a pattern. It becomes your identity. And once it's identity, change feels impossible. Because if I am anxious, how do I stop chasing? If I am avoidant, how do I stop running? If I am fearful, how do I stop fearing? The label is no longer a mirror. It's a cage. But here's the truth. Attachment styles are not your essence. They are adaptations. They are survival blueprints your nervous system created when you were too young to put words to pain. They are strategies your body learned to keep you safe. Think about the anxious child. They clung tightly to the parent who was unpredictable. They amplified their cries, their needs, their emotions, because it was the only way to get attention. Their body learned, if I don't cling, I'll be abandoned. Think about the avoidant child. They shut down because their caregiver couldn't meet their needs. They turned inward. They self-soothed. They taught themselves, if I don't rely on anyone, I won't be disappointed. Think about the fearful child. They grew up in chaos. Love was dangerous. Comfort was mixed with threat. They learned, I want closeness, but closeness hurts. These patterns were not chosen. They were formed. They were protective. And in childhood, they worked. They kept you alive. They gave you a way to cope. They ensured survival. But here's the tragedy. What once kept you safe now keeps you stuck. The strategies that worked in childhood sabotage you in adulthood. And this is why people mistake labels for who they are. Because the strategies feel automatic. They feel instinctive. They feel like truth. But they are not truth. They are trauma's echo. So let's pause here. You've been told you're anxious. You've been told you're avoidant. You've been told you're fearful. But beneath all of that, who are you? Are you the label? Or are you the person who learned to wear it? To survive? The answer matters. Because if you believe the label is all you are, you'll stay small. You'll say, "This is just me. I'll never change. I'll always chase. I'll always run. I'll always sabotage." But if you understand that the label is just survival, then suddenly you're not trapped. You can heal. You can rewire. You can choose differently. And here's the thing. Healing does not mean becoming someone else. It means becoming who you were before survival took over. Most people don't realize this. Attachment styles are not permanent. They're plastic. They can shift. Science has shown that with new experiences, secure bonds, and self-awareness, our nervous system can adapt. We can learn new strategies. We can regulate differently. We can feel safe in closeness. We can trust connection. In other words, you can move toward secure attachment, but you'll never move there if you worship the label, because the more tightly you cling to being anxious, the more you'll behave anxiously. The more tightly you cling to being avoidant, the more you'll behave avoidantly. The label becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is the trap. What once gave you freedom, the ability to name your pain, can become the very thing that locks you in it. Now let's go even deeper. Why do we love labels so much? Because they simplify the unbearable. They give us shortcuts to understanding. But human beings are not shortcuts. We are stories. We are contradictions. We are nuance. A person may be anxious in love, but confident in career. They may avoid closeness in romance, but crave it in friendship. They may be fearful with family, but secure with children. Which label fits then? The truth is, no single label does, because you are not static. You are situational. You are relational. You are evolving. The label doesn't account for this. It flattens you. It reduces you. It makes you one-dimensional. But you are not one-dimensional. You are vast. And the tragedy of living inside a label is that you never get to meet the fullness of yourself. Here's the shift you need. Don't see your attachment style as your identity. See it as your origin story. It explains where you came from, but it does not define where you're going. It explains the strategies you used, but not the possibilities ahead. It's the first chapter, not the last. And when you hold it this way, the label empowers instead of limits. It says, here's why you've struggled. Here's what your body learned. Here's how you can begin to heal. It becomes a guide, not a cage. So remember this. The comfort of labels is real, but the trap of labels is also real. Don't mistake the map for the territory. Don't confuse the adaptation for your essence. You are not anxious. You are not avoidant. You are not fearful. You are the self beneath the strategy. And when you begin to meet that self, the one hidden under years of survival, that's when life begins to open. That's when love stops being a battlefield of patterns and starts being a place of freedom. When labels become a cage, at first, labels feel like freedom. They tell you, you are not broken. You are patterned, predictable, understandable. You finally see your struggles on a page, written in a book, spoken in a video, described in someone else's voice, and you breathe out. It's not just you, but over time, the same label that soothed you can start to suffocate you. Because when you call yourself anxious, you begin to expect chaos. When you call yourself avoidant, you begin to expect coldness. When you call yourself fearful, you begin to expect failure. The label becomes not just a description, but a script. And slowly, you stop asking, who am I becoming? And start believing, this is all I'll ever be. The human mind is a storyteller. Give it a word, and it will build a life around it. Tell a child, you're shy, and watch how they avoid raising their hand in class. Tell a teenager, you're smart, and watch how they crumble the first time they fail. Tell an adult, you're anxious, and watch how every relationship is filtered through panic. Labels have gravity. They pull your choices, your reactions, your self-worth into their orbit. It's not that the labels are lies. They are often accurate. They capture tendencies, traumas, truths. But truth is not destiny. And labels, when overused, blur the difference. They turn tendencies into identities, and identities into prisons. Think of it this way. Imagine you're handed a coat. It fits well. It feels warm. It explains why you were cold before. So you wear it everywhere. At first, you're grateful. But one day, you notice the coat is heavy. Another day, you see the fabric tearing. On another, you realize the weather has changed. But the coat remains. Still, you cling to it. Because without it, who would you be? That's what happens when labels become cages. You start to protect the very thing that's weighing you down. Many people confuse growth with betrayal of identity. They think, if I'm not anxious, then who am I? If I stop avoiding, will I even recognize myself? If I lose this label, what fills the silence? It's terrifying because the label, though painful, feels familiar, predictable, safe. And here's the paradox. The very labels meant to help you heal can become the chains that stop you from healing. This shows up most in relationships. When someone says, I'm anxious, so I chase, they give themselves permission to repeat the cycle. When someone says, I'm avoidant, so I pull away, they excuse the very walls that keep them lonely. When someone says, I'm fearful, so I'll fail, they accept loss before they even begin. It feels honest, but honesty without evolution becomes a cage. You might notice this in your own life. How many times have you forgiven yourself for the same behavior because you tied it back to your label? How many times have you stayed small because your box told you growth wasn't possible? How many times have you lowered your expectations because you believed your label was stronger than your will? Here's the truth. Most people don't want to hear. Labels don't heal you. Awareness does. The label is just a door. Walking through it, that's the work. But too often, people camp at the doorway. They say, I'm anxious, so please understand. They say, I'm avoidant, so please don't expect more. They say, I'm fearful, so please forgive me. And in doing so, they never step into the house. They never build new rooms. They never expand the story. They live forever at the entrance, holding their label like a passport that never gets them anywhere new. But you are not meant to live at the doorway. You are meant to move, to stretch, to grow. Your nervous system, as wired as it feels, is plastic, changeable, alive. Your patterns, as stubborn as they seem, are adaptive, not fixed. What was once a survival response doesn't have to be a lifelong identity. Science proves this. Brains rewire, hearts heal, attachment styles shift. You may never erase every trace of your old label, but you can transform how it shows up, how it controls you, how much power it holds. You can be anxious, but steady, avoidant, but open, fearful, but brave, because labels are not life sentences. They're starting points. The danger is not in naming yourself. The danger is in stopping there. If you believe the label is the end of the story, you'll never discover the chapters waiting to be written. And that's the tragedy. Not that you were anxious, not that you were avoidant, not that you were fearful, but that you believed. You were only that. So the question isn't, what label do I carry? The question is, what will I do with it? Will you use it as an excuse? Or will you use it as a map, a guide that points you to the places you still need to grow? Because beyond labels, there is life. Beyond labels, there is love. Beyond labels, there is you, the you that exists before the categories, beneath the patterns, beyond the box. And the moment you glimpse that, you realize the cage was never locked. You always held the key, the stories behind the labels. Every label is a story, a shortcut for something deeper. Anxious. It sounds like a word, but it's really a memory. The memory of being a child who cried out, and sometimes no one came. The memory of love that felt unpredictable, present one day, gone the next. It's the story of hypervigilance, of scanning the room, reading every micro-expression, holding your breath, waiting for rejection. Avoidant. It sounds like detachment, but it's really survival. The survival of a child who learned that showing need only led to disappointment. The survival of walls built because vulnerability felt dangerous. It's the story of silence, of shutting down before the hurt comes, of saying, I don't need anyone, even while aching inside. Fearful. It sounds like indecision, but it's really conflict. The conflict of wanting closeness, but fearing abandonment. The conflict of reaching out and pulling back in the same breath. It's the story of a nervous system caught between alarm and longing, of trust that feels impossible, of love that feels unsafe. See, the labels are just the headlines. The stories beneath them are much richer, much more complex, much more human. When you reduce yourself to anxious, you erase the child in you who was only asking to be seen. When you reduce yourself to avoidant, you erase the protector in you who only wanted safety. When you reduce yourself to fearful, you erase the warrior in you who kept reaching out despite the fear. The danger of labels is that they flatten us. They make us two-dimensional, and human beings are never two-dimensional. We are not static. We are not cardboard cutouts. We are living, breathing, messy contradictions. We can be anxious and brave, avoidant and deeply loving, fearful and still hopeful. But labels trick us into thinking the contradictions make us broken, when really, they make us whole. Think about this. Every great story has contradictions. The hero is strong, but also afraid. The lover is devoted, but also flawed. The seeker is lost, but also determined. If you strip the contradictions away, the story would collapse. It's the same with you. The parts of you that feel in conflict are not mistakes. They are the very texture that makes you human. When you over-identify with one label, you lose the rest of your story. You stop being the hero. With contradictions, you become a caricature. Anxious, avoidant, fearful. 3 words, trying to hold the complexity of an entire life. It's too small, too shallow, too simple. So ask yourself, what's the story behind my label? What does anxious mean in the language of my past? What does avoidant mean in the language of my wounds? What does fearful mean in the language of my survival? Because once you know the story, you can change it. You can't rewrite a label, but you can rewrite a narrative. And rewriting doesn't mean erasing the past. It means reframing it. Instead of, I'm anxious, so I'm needy, try, I'm anxious because my younger self needed more than they received, and I honor that need. But I can also teach myself to feel safe now. Instead of, I'm avoidant, so I'll always push people away. Try, I'm avoidant because I learned. Connection felt unsafe. But now I can choose who is safe to let in. Instead of, I'm fearful, so I'll always ruin relationships. Try, I'm fearful because I hold both longing and pain. But I'm brave enough to keep reaching for love anyway. Reframing is liberation because it allows you to move beyond the box without denying the truth. It honors the past, but refuses to be trapped by it. It says, yes, this shaped me, but it does not define me. The reason so many people stay stuck in labels is because they confuse accuracy with destiny. Just because something describes you doesn't mean it confines you. Yes, you may have anxious tendencies, but that doesn't mean you can't learn calm. Yes, you may have avoidant patterns, but that doesn't mean you can't learn intimacy. Yes, you may have fearful cycles, but that doesn't mean you can't learn trust. The truth is, your nervous system adapts, your mind grows, your heart heals. Science calls it plasticity. I call it possibility. And possibility is bigger than any label. Here's the question that shifts everything. What if your label is not who you are, but simply where you started? Not a cage, but a clue. Not an end, but a beginning. If you hold your label loosely, it can guide you. But if you hold it tightly, it will confine you. This is why some people heal and others don't. It's not about who's more damaged. It's about who's more willing to move beyond the label. Those who cling to it become it. Those who hold it lightly outgrow it. And the choice is always yours. Imagine two people. Both grew up anxious. Both crave reassurance. One says, this is just who I am. Take it or leave it. The other says, this is what shaped me, but I'm willing to learn safety and give myself what I didn't get. Which one do you think builds healthier love? Not the one with the perfect past, but the one who refuses to let their past be the only story they tell. So let me ask you directly, are you living in your story or in your label? Are you repeating your script or rewriting it? Because the moment you choose story over stereotype, everything changes. You stop being a category. You start being a character. And characters grow. Characters transform. Characters surprise even themselves. The labels will always exist. You can't erase them from psychology. You can't delete them from books. You can't stop people from using them, but you can refuse to shrink yourself to fit them. You can take your story back. You can stretch it wider. You can live beyond it. Because you are not anxious. You are a human who feels deeply. You are not avoidant. You are a human who learned to protect themselves. You are not fearful. You are a human who carries both hope and hurt. The label is a word. You are a world. Never forget the difference. Healing beyond the box. Healing does not happen inside a label. Healing happens when you step outside of it. Because a label doesn't change, but you do. Think about how we talk about healing today. We say things like, I'm healing my anxious attachment, or I'm working on my avoidant patterns. And while that's helpful, it's also limiting. It frames healing as fixing a flaw. Instead of expanding a capacity, it makes it sound like you're broken. Instead of growing, healing is not about becoming secure, as if secure is a trophy you win. Healing is about integration, about taking the anxious part, the avoidant part, the fearful part, and weaving them together into a wiser, stronger whole. Because you are not anxious or avoidant. You are not fearful or secure. You are a mosaic, and mosaics are not built by erasing pieces. They are built by arranging them into beauty. But here's the trap. Most people think healing means erasing their past, cutting out the anxious part, cutting out the avoidant part, cutting out the fearful part. They want to amputate. But healing is never amputation. Healing is reclamation, taking the part of you that panics and teaching it safety, taking the part of you that shuts down and teaching it trust, taking the part of you that wavers and teaching it courage. You don't heal by discarding your parts. You heal by integrating them, because every part was trying to protect you. Every part was doing its best. Even the anxious part, even the avoidant part, even the fearful part. None of them are enemies. They are messengers. So healing begins with gratitude, not resentment, not shame, not war. Gratitude, thanking the anxious part for trying to keep love close, thanking the avoidant part for trying to keep you safe, thanking the fearful part for trying to hold both needs at once. Only when you thank them can you teach them, because no part learns when it feels hated, but every part softens when it feels seen. This is why self-compassion is the foundation of healing, not self-criticism, not self-punishment, not endless self-analysis. Self-compassion, because without compassion, you stay in the loop. You shame the anxious part, and it gets louder. You hate the avoidant part, and it hides deeper. You reject the fearful part, and it pulls harder. But when you meet them with kindness, they begin to trust you. And that trust is what creates change. Think about it like this. If a child is scared, you don't scream at them to be braver. You hold them, you soothe them, you show them safety, and slowly, they learn courage. Your anxious part is that child. If someone feels unsafe, you don't punish them for building walls. You prove over and over that safety is real, and slowly, they open the door. Your avoidant part is that protector. If someone feels torn, you don't shame them for hesitating. You remind them gently that love can hold both fear and hope. And slowly, they step forward. Your fearful part is that struggler. Every one of your parts is a child version of you, still waiting to be reparented. That's what healing is. Reparenting yourself, giving yourself the safety, the attunement, the acceptance that you didn't get before. Not once, not perfectly, but consistently, until your parts begin to trust that you are safe to lead them now. This is why self-healing is not selfish, because when you integrate your parts, you stop projecting them onto the people you love. You stop demanding partners to soothe your wounds. You stop punishing friends for your past betrayals. You stop expecting the world to give you what you've never given yourself. Healing is freedom for you and for everyone around you. But here's the part most people miss. Healing is not linear. It's not a straight line upward. It's cyclical, like seasons, like tides. You will revisit the anxious part. You will revisit the avoidant part. You will revisit the fearful part, not because you failed, but because each return is another chance to bring more compassion, more wisdom, more safety. Every cycle deepens your strength. So instead of saying, "I thought I healed this, why is it back?" say, "This part is visiting again, and I am stronger now. I can meet it differently." That's growth, not perfection. Integration. Another trap is comparison. Looking at someone else's healing journey and thinking, "They're secure, I'm still anxious." But comparison is always a lie, because you don't see the story behind their calm. You don't see the work they're still doing. You don't see the cycles they revisit in private. Healing looks different on every person. Your path is yours. Their path is theirs. There is no race, no finish line. There is only becoming. So what does healing beyond labels actually look like in daily life? It looks like noticing your triggers without letting them define you. It looks like pausing when your old patterns rise and choosing differently, even if just slightly. It looks like offering yourself kindness when you slip. It looks like practicing safety, trust, and courage in small doses until they grow into habits. It looks like honesty with yourself and with others. It looks like owning your story without letting it shrink you. Healing beyond labels does not mean never being triggered again. It means not being ruled by the trigger. It means knowing, this is my anxious part speaking. This is my avoidant part flaring. This is my fearful part trembling. And then asking, what does this part need right now? And how can I give it to myself? This shift is the difference between being trapped in your patterns and being free to choose. Because freedom is not the absence of struggle. Freedom is the presence of choice. And healing beyond labels gives you that choice back. So maybe today, you still feel anxious. Maybe tomorrow, you still shut down. Maybe next week, you still waver. That doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human. Because the goal was never to erase your parts. The goal was always to integrate them, to hold them with compassion, to weave them into wisdom, to become whole. And when you live whole, labels stop being prisons. They become artifacts, pieces of your past, not sentences for your future. You are more than anxious. You are more than avoidant. You are more than fearful. You are the one who integrates them all. That is healing. That is freedom. That is beyond the box. Stepping into wholeness. There comes a moment in every healing journey where you realize the label was never you. It was a mirror, a reflection, a map, but not the destination. You are not anxious. You are not avoidant. You are not fearful. You are not even secure. You are human, and being human is bigger than any box a theory can put you in. Labels helped you survive. They gave you words. They gave you understanding. They gave you relief. But they are scaffolding. Scaffolding holds you up while you're building. But once the building is strong, the scaffolding comes down. You don't live inside scaffolding. You live inside the home you built. Your home is wholeness. Your home is freedom. Your home is integration. Not anxious, not avoidant, not fearful, not just secure. Whole. But here's the paradox. You don't reach wholeness by chasing wholeness. You reach it by practicing presence, by meeting yourself moment by moment, by choosing compassion over criticism, by choosing honesty over hiding, by choosing courage over fear. Wholeness is not a destination. It is a practice. Think about how trees grow. They don't wake up one morning and declare themselves whole. They grow ring by ring, year by year, season by season. Some years bring storms. Some years bring drought. Some years bring abundance. But every year, they add another ring, another layer, another depth. That's wholeness. Not perfection, not arrival, but steady, living depth. When you step into wholeness, your relationships change. You stop searching for someone to fix your anxious part. You stop pushing away because of your avoidant part. You stop doubting love because of your fearful part. Instead, you bring them with you, integrated, calm, held. So when love arrives, you don't cling in panic. You don't shut down in fear. You don't sabotage in doubt. You meet it, open, grounded, whole. And when conflict arises, you don't collapse. You don't disappear. You don't explode. You breathe. You stay. You repair. Because you're not operating from unhealed parts anymore. You're operating from wholeness. But let's be honest, this is not easy work. It's slow. It's vulnerable. It's messy. Because integration means facing the parts of yourself you once rejected. It means holding shame until it softens. It means touching fear until it dissolves. It means embracing grief until it transforms. This is not surface work. It's soul work. But here's the truth. Nothing else compares. Because no relationship, no success, no achievement can fill the hole that only integration can. And once you do integrate, everything else expands. Love feels richer. Connection feels safer. Life feels fuller. Because you're no longer splintered inside. You're whole. So where do you begin? Not with trying to be secure. Not with trying to fix yourself overnight. Begin with presence. Ask yourself, what part of me is speaking right now? Is it the anxious part, longing for closeness? Is it the avoidant part, begging for space? Is it the fearful part, caught in the tug of war? Name it, see it, thank it, and then ask, what does this part need? Do I need safety? Do I need reassurance? Do I need space? Do I need courage? Give it to yourself, as best you can. Not perfectly, but consistently. Every time you do this, you weave another thread of wholeness. And here's the beauty. The more you practice wholeness, the less you need labels. Because you no longer ask, am I anxious or avoidant? You begin asking, what do I need right now? And that question will always lead you closer to healing than any label ever could. When you live beyond labels, you reclaim your story. You stop being the person defined by your past. You stop being the partner defined by your wounds. You stop being the human defined by a theory. You become someone bigger, someone deeper, someone freer. Because you are not a label. You are not a box. You are not a category. You are a whole human being. And no label can ever capture that. So maybe today, you still identify with anxious, or avoidant, or fearful. That's okay. That's just where you are. But hold this truth close. You are always more than the label. And the moment you start practicing wholeness, you begin to outgrow the box. Not by force, but by nature. Like a tree, growing beyond the scaffolding. Like a soul, expanding beyond the theory. Like you, finally stepping into freedom. So here's the reminder you've been waiting for. You are not just anxious. You are not just avoidant. You are not just fearful. You are all of it. You are more than it. You are wholeness in motion. And that is who you've been all along. If this resonated with you, remember, your story is bigger than a label. Share this video with someone who's still stuck in the box. Because they need to know, just like you, they are more than anxious, more than avoidant, more than fearful. They are whole. They are free. They are becoming. And so are you.